It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the 16th edition of the School of Tomorrow events, Guardians of the Future, Shaping Tomorrow with Generative AI. The non-profit SOT event series was launched by Beacon House in 2000 to engage global communities in conversations that shape the future of schools and societies. I would like to thank Google for Education, the lead sponsor for SOT 2023, and their partner TechBelly. Our titanium sponsor is UBL. Other key sponsors include My Backpack, MK Books, Allied Bank Limited, Habib Bank Limited, Wateen, and Interwood. We also thank our SOT supporters, including Paramount Books and Nestle Pure Life, who have contributed to this year's event. My name is Sadia Chand, and I am branch head at Beacon House F74. Please take a moment to note these important points. Please ensure your cell phones are silent. In case of an emergency, the exit point is at your back. Please stay calm and follow the directions. Please use the SOT app to scan the QR code for Q&A and feedback. Share your thoughts on social media using the hashtag Guardians of Future and SOT 2023. If you need assistance, our ushers are here to help. For questions, please either use the flashcards provided by the ushers or the mobile apps. The panel discussion will last for about 45 minutes, followed by the Q&A. Now I would like to introduce the moderator of this session, Mr. Ali Raza. He has been diverse experience of working in the corporate, development, and the public sector for over 3 decades. His main area of expertise has been in the field of education, where he has served in public, private, and NGO sector. For more than 17 years, he has been an integral part of the larger school network, Beacon House, serving as the regional director for Pakistan and Malaysia, and a project director for the educators. He has also served as the advisor to the Prime Minister on Education Reforms Program for over 2 years. He is currently working as the Group Director, Beacon House. He is also member, Board of Governor, Punjab Curriculum and Textbook Board, and National Curriculum Council. Mr. Ali Raza, you're welcome on the stage.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I have a very distinguished panel to speak to. I don't think they need any introduction. Dr. Mariam Chugtai is the director for National Curriculum Council, and in the last some years has really made a marked difference. We've got Mr. Arshad, who's heading OUP in Pakistan. We've got Kevin Hiat. He's the head of publishing at PSM. And then we have Sarah, our AI bot. So I would like to welcome all of you. And I think you deserve a round of applause. So we've got a very interesting topic to discuss today. It's textbook, Unbound, AI, VR, and future of learning. So traditional resources as textbooks, notes, etc., have always been part and parcel of our traditional teaching. These are used to bring in conceptual clarity outlined in the curriculum. When the resources started to evolve, e-tech emerged and started to get integrated in all subjects. It was not easy for digital immigrants to integrate technology in their subject teaching. It was only after COVID that this apprehension was overcome by the teachers and they started to use technology in all types of schools. When I say all types of schools, I remember educators, which is a low-fee private school in Pakistan, with more than 560 odd branches in 220 cities. So when the schools closed down, that was the time when we were essentially in a bit of trouble, because many other institutions like Beacon House or these top-end schools had the resources to, get online teaching. But it was essentially schools like educators and, about 80% of the low-fee private schools in Pakistan, which were essentially struggling at that point in time. But I think it was miraculous that all these teachers got on board and they knew that they could not afford those learning losses. So essentially, I think that is where we got into this paradigm shift from the normal teaching and learning, and technology got integrated into our new paradigm. And that is essentially when a lot of edtech firms started to evolve, and now we see so many of them actually providing those resources for teaching and learning in the schools. So I'd start with Dr. Mariam Chugtai. The first question I'd put to you. Traditional teaching resources like textbooks, flashcards, notes have always been part of our educational landscape since long. With the shift towards inclusion of technology as a resource, such as artificial intelligence and virtual reality, how has it been addressed by the national curriculum of Pakistan?
Thank you very much for inviting me. This conference has always been a highlight amongst education stakeholders from within Beacon House and beyond, and I'm grateful to this forum for always creating that space for informed dialogue on what works and what could work in education. Is it all right if I'm bilingual?
Well, we've got one guest of ours who's online, so he may struggle understanding. But I think bilingual is fine.
And we don't know about your AI bot.
Yeah, no, we will have to be very specific in asking the bot question, so that's fine. But
Okay.
You mean the bot can't understand Urdu?
I think they're
Not
still
yet.
struggling. Not yet, yeah.
So the first thing we've done at the National Curriculum Council is to look at the word curriculum in its entirety. People from the education sector understand this, but most people at large, even parents, school administrators, do not distinguish between curriculum, syllabus, textbooks, and learning resources. They think everybody has a different understanding of what it means to be, what the word curriculum means. And following research, we feel that a curriculum has 4 key components. There's a lot of other things as well, but 4 key components, which is the standards, textbooks and learning materials, teachers and everything related to teachers, and then assessments, whether it's formative or summative. There's, of course, the facilities, there's the hidden curriculum, there's all these other things as well, but these are the 4 verticals, the 4 pillars of what makes a curriculum. What the National Curriculum Council has done, to answer your question, is a very fundamental shift in what we make mandatory and what we leave for the context to decide, for the teacher to decide, for the student to decide in what their learning pathway is going to be. So when you talk about the core minimum standard, you are really essentially just talking about what is that concept that a child, irrespective of their socioeconomic background, must know by this grade level or by this age level in order to succeed in their life. And everything else needs to be left flexible and diverse. If you don't do that, for instance, if you bring in a policy of a single textbook, that's one size fits all. Or even if you say that every kid must do 12 years of industrial style education, cohort model like factory workers. Every teacher must have this lesson plan and follow it. Every school must follow this 12-month academic year. The more restrictions you add, the less space you create for actual learning to happen. And so when we talk about artificial intelligence or technology or diverse settings, linguistically, geographically, the most important thing you can do is to only focus on those core minimum standards and enable everybody else according to their circumstances to achieve those standards well. And I think that this is the first time in the public sector that we are seeing this shift towards SLO-based exams, which have been initiated in the federal board and also in Gilgit-Baltistan. And I think they are sort of spearheading this pathway towards creating space for whether it's artificial technology or other creative ways of pedagogy and learning. So I think that I would say is the most fundamental thing we've done.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to Arshad Saab. Arshad, you are essentially one of the largest publishing house in the world, one of the largest and perhaps one of the largest in Pakistan. Your organization plays a very pivotal role in the development of educational content. Could you please elaborate as to what kind of strategic planning is taking place in your organization to adopt to this paradigm shift in terms of content creation, dissemination, and implementation at the school level?
Right. Thank you so much, Ali, first of all, for inviting me here to participate in this panel. So, to answer your question, I think generative AI over these past few months has created quite a stir across the whole world. You know, everyone is talking about ChatGPT and how ChatGPT can transform lives, make your job so much easier. Students are using it to do their homeworks. I hear some teachers are using it for lesson planning, even selecting questions. I have used it to respond to emails and letters. So it's, you know, it is truly transformational and it is exciting. So in the light of that, Oxford University Press a few months ago conducted this global research on generative AI and other technologies, specifically in education. And you know, it's very interesting that our research showed that while teachers and pupils are optimistic about the role of AI in education and recognize how it has the potential to have a positive impact on learning, however, there are many unanswered questions and potential risks associated with this new technology. And as more people start to adopt and embrace and experiment with generative AI and ChatGPT, I think governments and educational leaders need to take action. You know, we need to equip the students and teachers with the necessary skills so that they can thrive in an AI-enabled world. Now, some of the unforeseen risks stemming from generative AI is its capability to manipulate deceptive content and its narratives. And that is something that the world is waking up to, and we as educators and publishers and academics need to be aware of that, and this needs to be regulated. In this regard, you know, just a couple of days ago in Bletchley Park, there was a conference held, and in a declaration, 28 countries signed up to the Bletchley Declaration, and that actually spoke about controlling generative AI in the education space and creating rules and processes around its use. And I think that is the way forward for it.
Okay, thank you so much. Kevin, can you hear us? Kevin online? Okay. Anyway, so thank you very much. So, as it seems, Arshad, that since the concepts are relatively new, so I'm sure a lot of, you know, as we roll out certain things, the regulations and all these things come in later, but clearly people have started to look into these directions now, and apparently there'll be some kind of regulatory framework which will end up developing around it. So Mariam, I've got another question for you. Teaching students according to their learning needs has been a continuous discussion amongst educationists for a very long time. What challenges do you foresee in the strategic process to include equity and inclusion through AI and VR into the curriculum?
That's a very good question, because so far when we talk about inclusion, we are thinking in terms of you know, kids who are out of school, for instance, so socioeconomic background, kids who don't speak English or Urdu as a first language, so they have trouble accessing the predominant textbooks if that are written in Urdu or English. So linguistic barriers. We're thinking of, regional barriers. Rural, urban classrooms are very different. And then there are other, types of barriers that we think about. But one particular thing that I think, as you said, over the past 3 months, AI has been there for the past 60 years, and we have been using it in our lives. It's generative AI, which is the computer's ability to generate things that humans can generate, that has come to the public domain in the last 3 months. So with generative AI, one big sort of group that needs to be included is along the dimension of time. So this particular generation, when they are in school or when they will enter school, their world is very different than ours. So while previously we were thinking about inclusion in terms of maybe neurodiversity, in terms of socioeconomic differences, linguistic differences, now we are thinking in terms of differences of time. So, and it is particularly hard for schools because parents expect that schools and teachers will deliver education the way in which they were taught. Their metrics of what is success is what they experienced when they were back in school, and that is so long ago in terms of technology. It is eons away. So I think that it is imperative for us to understand that we use AI, for instance, generative AI, not to just do the same things faster. So I'm going to make a lesson plan. How about as Arshad Saab said, I'll use artificial intelligence to ChatGPT to create a lesson plan. But for us to reimagine the purpose of a lesson plan. So when EdTech came about, the first thing people started doing was, or even in the pandemic mostly, was this exact same lecture just delivered online. Exact same thing, same textbook, just scanned and put on the government website. That is not an effective use of technology. The equivalent would be that we had horses to get from one place to another, and we kept using technology to make a horse faster, instead of inventing a car, and then inventing a solar-powered car, and then, a driverless car. So I think the equivalent of using artificial intelligence in education has to be not just of doing the same things faster and more efficiently, but to do the inefficient things differently. And I see it as a very promising time for education.
Okay. Thank you so much. So Kevin, can you hear us?
Hello, yes, I can hear you now.
Great. So Kevin, welcome to our conference.
Thank you.
If you have any opening statement to make, I don't know, were you a part of this earlier discussion?
I was in earlier. I don't have a huge amount to add other than that we've been really excited to see the interest that schools have in AI, but also to echo what some of the other people have said. There's a lot of excitement around AI and how it's going to influence education, but there's also a huge amount of concern about how it's going to be used effectively. And the thing that we're seeing most from our research from teachers as well is a desire to do the best for their students and a worry that they're not going to be able to do the best with this new technology without appropriate support.
Okay, thank you so much. So I have a question for you in that case. In the current education scenario, where students and digital natives and teachers are, obviously, the students are digital natives and the teachers are digital immigrants, how are we going to bridge this gap to incorporate the digital AI and VR in teaching and learning at the classroom level?
That's a really interesting one. So I think one of the things that's going to be absolutely key here is professional development for teachers and upskilling people. We say that students are digital natives, and to an extent that's true, but I think AI is an emerging technology for everybody, so we're looking at professional development for teachers and students here. 18 months ago, I don't think we'd have been having this conversation. And AI can be seen as a tool. It's a tool, but it's not like a pencil being used in the classroom where you pick it up and use it. A pencil doesn't introduce ethical concerns, it doesn't potentially decide on a certain pedagogy, and it doesn't come with a host of issues around data protection or personalisation of learning. So I think it's important that authorities, schools and publishers all realise that there's a duty here to provide training on how and when to use AI effectively and how and when to intervene with that use as well. Teachers need training on things like how to design AI experiences to ensure that they're appropriate for students, to ensure that there's no bias introduced through its use, and also how they can use it effectively as an analytical tool. And students need exactly the same training as well. They're able to access AI without supervision, unfettered on their mobile phones, on tablets, on computers. They can do it at home, they can do it in school, and they're going to experience exactly these same issues, I think. In all of these cases, we need to work together. It's not a case of publishers leading or authorities leading. It's everybody, the tech companies, authorities, publishers working together to ensure that we're all going in the correct direction and we're including those creative and interpersonal and empathetic skills that AI on its own can't introduce.
Okay, thank you so much. Arshad, do you think that we will end up creating a cultural divide? I mean, because there are schools which can afford to have technology in the classroom, and then there are schools who obviously cannot afford, and like I said, 80% of our schools in the private sector fall in the category of low-fee private schools. So how do you foresee that? I mean, do you see a cultural divide there?
So, as far as access to digital technology is concerned, you know, digital globally is considered as the great equalizer, providing access to content for people across the world, anytime, anywhere, and at the lowest possible cost. So how do we bring it to the children of Pakistan? So while you are looking at schools and students not having access to the right kind of digital infrastructure, another way of looking at it is that as mobile technology improves and becomes more affordable and accessible, you know, now you have children, you have people with low income also having access to smart devices, smartphones, for example. And with that, if we as content creators can provide content to those students, you know, even do virtual classrooms, and through this technology of generative AI, and in sort of the student's learning process, the student can study at his pace in wherever he or she is, and with all they need is a smartphone. So rather than creating a social divide, I think it is a great equalizer. It will enable more and more people to get access to better quality content and education than we've been able to in the past.
Thank you so much. So, Dr. Mariam, do you think that the kind of situation we have in the public sector schools? Okay, so the private sector, obviously, because it tends to be very competitive, so they kind of, come to terms and they'll join the bandwagon. But with the public sector, you feel that we'll be able to, bridge this gap? How quickly, or what kind of a timeline do you see in there?
I'd like to tell you that in my experience with public school teachers, with the National Curriculum of Pakistan, we started this teacher training program. We wanted to pilot it first. And Sindh, of all provinces, which was our staunchest opponent, is now the first province to have notified the curriculum from early years up until 12th grade. So, and then they also came forth, and this was in the last government under Minister Sardar Shah. He gave us 3 pilot districts in Karachi, Hyderabad, and Sakkar, and said, show us what you can do. And taking inspiration from the private sector, and I must acknowledge how much effort and how much of a contribution the private sector has made in helping us get to this point. We developed a teacher training program, we delivered it on the ground, and it was a cascade model, very cost effective. We trained in small groups, and then we trained those people not just in the content, but also to be trainers. And they sort of trained further people. And we found that the further teachers that they trained were actually better off than the ones trained by those coming from Islamabad, because the context was very similar. So when we were talking about active listening, we brought in examples of how do you do active listening, but the PowerPoints that the teachers created talked about how did the Prophet, peace be upon him, demonstrated active listening. That example was more resonant with the public school teachers. And what we've done, as Arshad Saab was saying, that now everybody has a smartphone. Maybe your phone is more expensive than the one that a public school teacher in Sakhar district has, but they all have WhatsApp, and we've created a community of practice. A community of practice is a shared space where people in a horizontally integrated power structure come together to solve each other's problems. And in that community of practice, what we're finding is a lot of real-life examples of teachers talking to one another and sharing examples of how in a low-resource classroom with no power or no facilities, as you will, just tremendous ideas of using plants and wool and stones to get kids to understand the curriculum conceptually. So I understand that perhaps virtual reality is not today an option, but I will tell you this, that today rich kids have tablets and poor kids have teachers. In the future, poor kids will have tablets and the rich kids will have teachers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because a teacher is very, very valuable. Technology will replace those teachers who are unwilling to adapt their ways to the needs of their students. But technology will never replace the way a teacher can read the room for every single child. Where is this kid today? Even artificial intelligence has not caught up with that, because artificial intelligence is not perceptive to new knowledge being created right there. It learns from what it has seen to date, and it will keep learning better. But a human will always be ahead in that. And I think that that ability is intrinsic to being a human being. And for that, I think our public school teacher is equally empowered as any elite private school teacher to use technology to the benefit of a school child.
That's great. So I think teachers have a lot of hope, because yesterday somebody was saying that 85,000 jobs will be lost in a couple of years. So I think teachers definitely have hope. They'll still continue. So Kevin, are you still there?
I am? Yes.
Okay. So Kevin, obviously, do you feel that technology will essentially enable differentiated learning? I mean, obviously the learning needs all the kids are very different. So do you think technology will enable their learning, or will it be detrimental? What is your opinion on that?
I think my feeling is it has the capability to enable differentiation if it's used effectively. I think AI is very capable at doing things like analysing trends and grades and learning styles across large groups quickly. And then it has the capacity as well to suggest interventions and personalised feedback to students, and it can again do that very, very quickly as well. It can help them access examples, real-life scenarios that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do. And with the introduction of VR as well, I mean, there's things like being able to immediately have a real-world application if a child is struggling with a particular concept. It does enable a great deal of personalisation, but it definitely still needs that teacher for the human element who understands the holistic child and everything that's going into that child's learning experience, their day, their home life. So there still needs to be a teacher there, but it can definitely support immediate personalisation of learning.
Okay, thank you so much. So, Arshad sir, 10 years down the road, how will OUP look like?
So, we have over the past several years been using digital technology, adapting to the new technological advances in learning and teaching. And what we feel is that, given our 500-year history, the corpus that we've built over these 500 years, that strengthened with the power of generative AI, can truly transform education in the future. So we see a digital future, we see a blended future, and where student learning will be far more adaptive, and students would be able to learn at their pace, and they'd be able to learn at different levels. So in the same classroom, you'll have children who are more advanced in a particular concept, and they will continue to be given more complex problems to solve. And all of that, this technology exists even today, and it's coming. So I think we all need to embrace digital technology, generative AI, other tools like virtual reality, and we as Oxford University Press are clearly moving in that direction, initially with blended and then moving on to digital.
Thank you so much. I think we've got another panelist. We've been ignoring her for a while. Let me see if we can get hold of her. Hello, Sarah. As a panelist, what are the challenges and opportunities of using AI and VR? What kind of challenges do you see in the future? It takes a while before.
She's thinking.
That phrase is often used in cricket. It refers to a player being out because the ball hits their leg before the wicket. Interested in more sports lingo?
Let me repeat the question, Sarah. As a panelist, what, in your opinion, is the future of textbooks and curriculum in the age of AI and VR?
I believe AI will enrich textbooks and curriculum, making education more interactive and personalized. How do you envision AI in education?
Thank you so much. Anyway, so Mariam, one last question to you. Obviously, I mean, one of the questions we face is that there'll be a cultural divide between the public sector schools and the private sector schools. What kind of a timeline do you anticipate? Would it, catch up sooner, later? Timeline do you foresee?
I feel that 7 to 10 years of uninterrupted priority to education reforms can actually really help with large gains in addressing this inequality. There is no magic that's needed. There is no mystery to what needs to be done. It just needs to be done. The issue that I've found, and it's interesting on the two ends of it, on the one end, we have this impression that education is not a political priority. It's actually to the contrary. Education has been strategically used for political gains for a very long time. Those political gains have not put student interests at the center. They have put political interests at the center. So when I say making education an uninterrupted priority for 7 to 10 years, which this National Curriculum Project has been able to manage to do despite immense political turmoil in the country, I think that if these reforms continue at the provincial level, at the national level, their implementation, I think, so I'm not talking about just political priority in terms of the way it has been, but actually a student-centered political priority. And on the other hand, another myth that we hear is that it's really bad at the school level, the teachers are uninterested, the teachers are not capable. You know, the school teachers in the public school system are all graduates of this dysfunctional school system. And, but that does not mean that they are incapable or unwilling to unlearn and relearn. And I have found that to be one of my most profound findings from working in the government sector, that once you get past the hard crust of bureaucracy and politics, underneath, whether it is the person who's making the board exam, who's writing, or the person who's checking the exam, or the school teacher, or the textbook author that is forced to plagiarize off the internet, or the textbook board reviewer that has absolutely no training on how to evaluate a textbook before giving an NOC, each one of them is profoundly committed to understanding how they can do their job better. But we constantly look at them as the problem. They are the solution. And I feel if we can make these two pivots, where education is a political priority with the student at the center, and we stop looking at the other as the problem, but rather we look at the other, and it works both ways. The public sector needs to stop looking at the private sector as some mafia. It is an ally. It is a very, very precious ally, because in Pakistan, with Pakistani teachers, with Pakistani students, it is producing students that are going to the best of universities. So this boundary between this lack of trust and inability to look at each other as allies, I think if we can do these 2 or 3 things, I anticipate that in another 7 to 10 years, you will see a marked difference in education.
No, I totally agree. I've had the chance to work with the government, and every time, I used to tell them that we've got such amazing success stories all around us that we don't have to import a program from Africa or somewhere. There are some amazing, even in the low-fee private schools.
Yes.
We've got some amazing success stories. All we have to do is to elaborate and learn. I mean, that's really how it is. How much time do I have? So, any closing remarks? Shita, you want to?
Ji. So, I think Dr. Mariam raised a very important point, and just elaborating on that from the private sector, from the publishing sector. So clearly, the private sector, be it private schools, private publishers, we're all stakeholders in improving the quality of education for our children in Pakistan. And towards that end, if we can all work together as allies, not as adversaries, I think that is the real solution. And Dr. Mariam very rightly pointed out that, while we feel that people in government or the regulators, be they the textbook boards, the reviewers there are not properly trained, but then we need to work with them to improve their level of understanding, and so that people are equipped with the necessary tools to assess and regulate better. Having said that, I would also like to build on another point that Dr. Mariam had mentioned earlier, and that was regarding the intent of the national curriculum policy that was rolled out and the national curriculum of Pakistan. So between the intent and the execution, there are still a lot of challenges. And for obvious reasons, we know that education being a provincial subject, provinces all need to sign up to it. And if we are to look at the current situation, so in Punjab, they have not as yet notified the 2022 changes to the primary curriculum. The 9 to 12 curriculum has not been notified. So as private publishers and private schools, we find it very challenging to produce content for on a national level when each province is looking at the same curriculum, the national curriculum of Pakistan, very differently. KPK also has not signed up, not signed up, they haven't notified the 2022 as well as the 9 to 12 curriculum for the academic year 2024. Sindh, although is aligned, but they have not laid out rules on how they intend to roll it out or regulate the curriculum. So in all of this, I think the biggest challenge for the curriculum teams of private schools and and private publishers is, what do we align our content to? When we submit to the regulator, one province is looking at a 2020 version of the curriculum, the other one is looking at another version of the curriculum, and there is no national alignment. That is posing a big challenge. One final thing, Dr. Mariam mentioned that originally the intent of the national curriculum of Pakistan was to lay minimum standards and not the maximum standards. Unfortunately, every regulator, be it PCTB, DCTE, Azad Jammu Kashmir, they are all still treating it as the maximum, as the ceiling and not the floor. And it continues to pose a challenge. And the challenge is, we as publishers cannot provide the right content for students who want to look at additional material beyond the curriculum. So those are real challenges which we need to address.
No, I totally agree. I mean, because clearly after the 18th Amendment, since it becomes a provincial subject, we sit with PCTB and, we face these challenges coming from publishers. And the worst part is that what we don't realize is that there are a lot of learning losses for the students, because we also keep, tweaking with the academic year, which ends up getting, making it worse for the students. So I think these are some of those challenges, but I think with time we may end up, hopefully we'll end up streamlining these. And I feel that once there is a government which is kind of, which understands the issues and they kind of collaborate on this, I feel that it'll make all the difference. Anyway, Kevin, if you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, just to say that I feel that AI actually provides us with an excellent opportunity. We spoke about personalization of learning earlier, and when we are looking at different curriculum and different regional needs and different local needs as well, we aren't quite there yet, but we will soon have the ability to use AI to amend digital content to provide the best possible experience for learners in a particular area. But we're not going to do that alone. It's not a question of leading. It's a question of a partnership between tech companies and, most importantly, the teachers as well. We don't want to rush ahead so fast that we leave behind teachers who bring those really personal understanding with their students as well. And we want to bring them with us and help them see how AI can help them do the absolute best for their students.
Anyway, thank you so much. Mariam, any closing remarks?
Thank you. I want to echo what Arshad Saab said, because those are excellent examples in what I was saying before he spoke. When we talk about that, functionally, some provinces are treating it as a maximum standard, not as a minimum standard. And when I said that right now, there is change in education policy, but it is not happening in a student-centered way. Why are certain provinces doing that? Because they are putting publisher interests above student interests. Now, not all publisher interests, some publisher interests. I mean, it's sad that OUP is not one of those publishers, but nonetheless, whenever it is a different entity's interest that is above the student interest, it may be the Urdu Bazaar publisher interest, because their guides have been in place since 1995 when I was back in high school. And right now, if they suddenly change from maximum to minimum, whatever you want to call it, it would mean that textbooks would have to change. That is wise. And then the second question of, why quality publishers or all publishers have to go to every different province to get a different NOC, and the speed at which provinces are catching up is different. That speaks to my other point about political prioritization of education. You can thank the 18th Amendment for it. The 18th Amendment has been there for 13 years. 13 years. Decentralization is fine, but as long as it helps the student. It has been 13 years and there does not exist an interprovincial coordination mechanism for collaborative NOCs. So this is another example of when change in education does come about, but there's no understanding of whether it will help the student or not. So I thank you for these two examples. But I will say that this is not a bite-sized sandwich. This is a sandwich we're going to have to eat over 7 to 10 years.
True.
And so for us to, I disagree with some of the assessment. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is using it up until 8th grade. So is Gilgit-Baltistan Federal, and 9 to 12 got notified just a couple of months ago. So yes, it will take time, but we should not be disheartened that because it's taking time, therefore we must stop in this journey.
Okay, thank you so much. So we are essentially in the segment of Q&A session. So no questions have been directed to a particular individual, so feel free to answer. So I'll start off with this one. How can this impact the teaching of morality and ethics, and how can we counter its adverse effects? Mariam,
I think that one of the most ironic things I discovered when this whole controversy and the single national curriculum project took off was, first of all, when you make faulty policy, you set up schools to find shortcuts. But when you're talking about ethics in education, the national curriculum has two main agendas. One is to provide quality education for professional development, and the other is character building for a more ethical collectivist society. When the curriculum came about, and a lot of the particularly high-fee private schools were against it, what was happening in schools was that even though the curriculum was emphasizing Siratun Nabi and character building, but the way the government was enforcing it, sending officers, schools had told their students that you will buy a second set of S&C books. When the inspector comes, we will put these books on your desk. We will give him 30,000 rupees in bribe, and then when he leaves, we will use our own. What kind of character? This is the hidden curriculum. It doesn't matter if that textbook includes all kinds of stories about how you ought to be a good citizen and how you got to speak. Your teacher, your school, your parent, your class fellows, everybody is modeling unethical behavior. So character building is important, but it is not restricted to what's written in the textbook. It is all about the school environment, and every stakeholder bears that responsibility.
Thank you. So Kevin, we've got a question for you. What measures are in place to ensure that use of digital technologies do not replace crucial social interaction and hands-on learning experience?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, we can't intervene directly or mandate how people use it. All we can do is guide. We are developing, Pearson are developing professional development courses at the moment around AI, and a big chunk of that is AI ethics, and ensuring that people do realise the risks that are inherent here. I think it can just, I used earlier the example of comparing AI to a pencil. The danger is that we do treat it the same, and it's not the same. There needs to be a code of ethics agreed, ideally internationally, but nationally, regionally, and within a school as well. Much as we'd agree behaviour policies within a school, which fall within a framework of laws and ethics within a country. People and publishers need to be really clear and transparent about how and when we use AI as well. People need to know what it actually does and what data it collects. And honestly, I don't want to fearmonger here, but people do need to understand the data it's collected, and that needs to be transparent, and people need to have the opportunity to check it. and to delete it. And there needs to be a human element as well there. AI is still at the point where it's going to make decisions that perhaps don't always think about the people involved and the human element. It needs human auditing to ensure that there's no discrimination or bias developed in an AI as well. So that's really my answer, is that we can't mandate it. All we can do is help educate people around the risks and how to manage them so it's used as an effective tool.
Thank you so much. Ashish sir, how can schools collaborate with technology developers and obviously publishers like yourself to establish and uphold these standards, to uphold the standards?
So, as I said in my opening remarks, governments, institutions, technology developers, and schools all need to collaborate, sit together, lay down a set of rules and processes that this is how we want to use generative AI. This is how we want to incorporate that this technology into your learning. And this is going to be a worldwide challenge for every country. And every country is looking at developing the right kind of rules and regulations to regulate using of generative AI into education.
Thank you so much. Mariam, what measures can be taken to support educators in adapting to the challenges educational landscape influenced by AI and VR? I think you've already kind of addressed this question, but if you want to elaborate on this.
Well, I will say that I was at a different panel some time ago, and they were saying, one of the respected co-panelists was saying that this generation is going to be lazy because they will not, write the essay. We have become lazy because we use these apps instead of memorizing. I gave this example that when writing was invented for the first time, Socrates said that this is going to make us lazy because we're not going to remember things anymore. So I think my parting thoughts to all educators present would be that you must remember that your students are not lazy, they are different. And your success is whether you can adapt to their world and reach out to them. And a great teacher will use technology for that, will not see technology as a competitor, will look at technology as an ally in that endeavor.
I think, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much. Anyway, thank you so much for such a distinguished panel to find time to be present for this session. I would like to thank the audience for being extremely patient. And I think we need to give a big hand to all the panelists. But before we go, I think one of the points that Mariam made makes a lot of sense, that we all will have a job in the years to come. Thank you so much.